it creates something. I like that they tried to do something different, and they admitted to it. Like, they knew it was controversial, so I like that. And there's another thing I really liked about Snake, which I don't know if you noticed, but when the crazy starts banging on the
using like the diner thing,
the manhole covers. Snake doesn't get up immediately and run after him. He waits and sees what's happening. And then later on, when the cars come, Maggie and Brain run away, but he stands there and he watches him. And so Carpenter and Russell said on set that Snake's not the type of guy that's going to run towards something. Like, he's running towards things, but a lot of times he'll look at situations and then he'll kind of assess, and then he'll move on. So, when he watches those people doing that stuff, attacking the woman, when he sees the cars pulling up, he stands there and watches when they tell him to run. When the guy's banging on the manhole covers, he sits there and he watches him. So it's pretty interesting how they added that in here with him about how he downloads information. Like, he's not a runawayer. He thinks about it, but I kind of like that about him. I think that's a pretty interesting trait that I don't know if I would have noticed had it not been for the commentary. Did you guys notice that while watching?
Mm-mm.
It's funny. I noticed it so I hadn't seen this in a long time, and I watched it twice in the last week. And the first time I watched it, when he looks at the guy knocking on the manholes, and then the guy goes along, I just figured that the Snake was trying to figure out what in the hell is going on. And maybe that's the case, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the second time, because the guy is doing something very deliberate. It's not just a crazy man. He's only knocking on manholes. He does it twice. So it's something it's not like it's subtle.
Yeah.
And then the second time, and of course I'm reminded of what happens. I'm like, I was still a little apprehensive about what's going on, but I like your explanation of it. That makes a lot of sense to me, that he's just, why run when you don't literally know what you're running from?
It's interesting, right? I think that's kind of cool how Snake downloads. I like that. And I like when also the cannibals, when he first, or whatever, the crazies, he just sits down on the chair. And that's the only time you really see him trying to kind of collect his thoughts. Like, that, it kind of humanizes him a little bit, and I dug that. And then another random thing is, did you know that Donald Pleasance, he plays the president, or Loomis, we'll call him.
President Loomis.
Yeah, he wanted to wear the wig in that scene. Like, he was all about...
That was Donald Pleasance's choice?
Donald Pleasance's choice to wear the wig.
It's funny. Wait, hold on. I said there was one moment that took me out of it when we were just talking about it. That when I saw that wig, even though I totally understand the mania of his captors, it still was something that visually I'm just like, no.
Yeah. Well, don't they hint at if he stays with them, there might be a fate worse than death, but they never say what that is.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So they're just taunting him and taking everything away. And he also built a massive backstory, and he wanted to let that, he wanted to tell John Carpenter about it, and Carpenter's like, no, Donald, I'm cool. So he was like a war veteran, and he had been in the war. So at the end, when he has the gun, he's very comfortable with it.
But he also, you can tell how deeply they affected him too, because he's screaming at the Duke the stuff that they said to him, and he's just going crazy on him.
And earlier, when Russell is rescuing him, when Snake is rescuing him the first time, he says, "Stop shaking, I can't."
Oh, yeah.
And so it's funny that you mentioned the war veteran thing in his backstory that wasn't in the movie, because I was sitting there watching this and him and thinking, like, is he like the only president of that time to not have been a veteran?
Yeah.
Because he was so rattled, because he was so fazed by everything. Like, if it was in his head that his backstory was that he was a veteran, I don't think he brought that at all until he was shooting a gun.
Yeah, because then he just knows how to work a gun almost immediately and lights up a dude
he crumbled at everything.
Yeah, he was shaking. Maybe he served and was used to being a bully, and then everyone, when he wasn't anymore.
He was used to that cushy bushy life.
The cushy bushy.
I mean, yeah, listen, we all get used to that cushy bushy life.
Oh, wait, so to be fair though, when we first meet him though on the plane, when we meet the president on the plane and early in the movie, did you not think that, like, no one told him he wasn't still playing Dr. Loomis?
His soul was this dark.
But he did. He had almost that hissy voice.
Yeah. I can't think of him using a hissy voice in other films. Like, he didn't do that in Wake and Fright. I mean, it works for him, right? I'm sure having Donald Pleasance in your movie made some money.
It works for me.
Yeah.
Because I love him. And it makes me think of other movies that I love.
And do you want to hear another really random fact that we found out? Lee Van Cleef, so in the commentary, Lee Van Cleef's knees were very, very bad. So when you watch him walking, he always hated his walking scenes, but Carpenter made him do it. So Megan and I were
that bad.
Yeah, that bad. And his wife was on set to help him. But I asked Megan one time, I'm like, is that scene out of focus? And then you found some research about these takes.
Oh, yeah, the scenes with him and his face are a lot of them out of focus, but they didn't have enough budget to reshoot, and he wasn't available because he was either undergoing treatment or something because of his knees.
Yeah, so they couldn't so if you see some out of focus stuff with him,
so they just decided to make it work.
Make it work.
Did you hear what kind of problems he had? I'm just
a horseback.
It was from a previous movie.
From his spaghetti westerns when he was out, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and all those. He had a major knee accident. And
never got it fixed.
Never got it fixed. You know that back in the day. Like,
Because he's such a long and wiry guy. I'm more used to thinking of your Kevin Nash's having the knee problems. These very large bodied weightlifters or fighters are who I think of. So it's like he's not the build I think of for that. So poor guy.
But yeah, watch him walk now, and you'll really notice that it was just really tough for him on set. So it's kind of gnarly. And then another thing. You guys are part of the Duke's inner circle of henchmen.
Okay.
Right? You are in his top 15.
I would be.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There are henchmen in this that have red sunglasses. There are different kind of henchmen, different kind of outfits. Bright purple sunglasses. You're in his top 15. You walk Snake back and forth. You're in his inner circle. You're in his car. What would be like? So Romero has the big hair and the bicep bracelet. I'm not bicep, but he has a bicep bracelet.
Yeah, he does. It's a metal cuff.
Yeah, metal bicep cuff. What would your gimmicks be if you were the henchmen's? So I always go to this. I'd be the Elvis henchman. I'd have the Elvis glasses and big chops. Like I'd just be. I'd
want to be practical in some way. Maybe a multi-utility vest of some sort, but it's cool and it's got leather fringe.
Oh, nice. Would you wear glasses?
Yeah.
And what kind of glasses?
Meg, I'm imagining you to be like more like the demolitionist version of Brain.
Demolitionist.
Yeah, with this utility belt and all the pockets and stuff.
Okay, I could be down for that. I like practical.
Yeah.
Right, and you're like the tactical response person dealing with that stuff. And I almost imagine that I am the total 80s stereotype person that is loyal to you and your cause. And so I'm the person wearing in Commando.
Yeah.
with the black racing gloves.
Yeah.
And maybe some
nice.
Mesh sleeveless shirt.
That sounds about right.
You would definitely have a sleeveless shirt.
Oh, and I've got a mustache.
You have a mustache.
What's funny is that no one has ever seen me with just a mustache, but in this case, I'd have a mustache because we're in the 80s.
Would you wouldn't be wearing leather pants though, John? Would you?
Do you think they make leather pants my size?
No. You'd be. I could see you with jorts maybe.
Oh no, because it's the 80s. I almost believe it, even though I don't want to.
I think jort. And what would your weapons be? So what do you think your weapons would be?
Probably there's no guns, right? So knives of some sort, throwing stars,
Snake throws a good knife in this movie.
Sharp stuff.
Sharp stuff. John, would you have a sledgehammer?
Boy, I don't like the hammer. I don't like the hammer.
It's really heavy
I can't have a gun, so I can't have the Colonial Marines giant gun, which is what I'd like to hold, right? Because they had the racing glove almost thing going on.
Yeah.
Nail bats.
So I can't do that. Boy, I'm not a fan of the nail bats, but I might be stuck with something like that. I almost want to think that I might just go like two knives with a downward grip.
I like it. It'd be a little weird to fight you, John. If I was Snake Plissken and I went to an island and you were a henchman and you said two tiny knives, I would be very confused.
Well, but big knives. They're big knives. They're not like kitchen knives.
I'm like, why does this big guy have little knives? I don't know what to do.
Okay, better. Instead of two downward gripped, we're going normal gripped, two giant cleavers.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I see
that. Does that work better for you?
Two giant cleavers.
Yeah, that you took
I'm
going
to
to
take it till the night comes for us.
You're in Manhattan. There's lots of butcher shops.
Yeah, and you got to wear a big hat to be Bill.
Oh, I'll wear a big hat with some Revo sunglasses. Those ridiculously shaped lenses.
Listen, John, if you want the downward knives, I'm all for it. I'd be very confused if I was a protagonist in a movie and I came across you with two tiny knives.
Well, no, in my head though they were big knives.
Okay.
Well, they weren't small knives. They weren't necessarily machetes, right? But they were big knives.
There's a Far Side comic where these hunters, they're hunting, and they're like, watch out, that rhino has a knife. There's a rhino with a tiny little knife in his hand. That always made me laugh. There's a lot of coarse quarter stuff in this film. Not a lot of it's in the street, it's in the corridor, so you got to have something smaller.
Yeah. Well, they have to, because they have makeshift weapons. They can't launch things.
All right.
So it has to be close. Maybe some piano wire.
Ooh.
If the Snake Plissken that I have to fight has a big fish and a hand axe, I'm just going to drop kick him when he dips that axe in that fish, like in Snowpiercer.
That's our first episode right there. Listen to our first. There's a lot of ums and ahs in it, but it's very funny. I
wonder in how many episodes we've referenced axe dipping in fish and drop kicking them.
Not enough.
It's probably like 40.
Oh yeah, easy. Nah, yeah, 40. 40's safe. I would say 20% of our episodes.
Well, you know what I forgot about? The Molotov cocktails. Cabby's good for those.
Oh yeah, Cabby loves those.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that Cabby dies.
I love
spoilers.
I can't think of that guy's name. So he was in The Devil's Reign.
Oh, Ernest Borgnine.
With Bill Shatner and John Travolta in a tiny role, right? And then like a year after this, he was in Deadly Blessing, Wes Craven's weird like Quaker movie horror. And then later he's like in Basketball.
Yeah.
Like he's done some wacky stuff, man. And he always plays a loony character.
Oscar winner.
Was he an Oscar winner?
Yeah, Borgnine. Yeah, Borgnine won for Marty. No, Marty. Right?
I did not know that.
Yeah, Ernest Borgnine.
Did not know that.
IMDb. Was it Marty that he won for, Meg? What's this movie that he was in? People are probably losing their mind. Wait, yeah, one Oscar, and he won it for. I hope my brain still works, because if this is right. Yeah, Marty. Holy crap. 1955. Best actor in a leading role.
55. 26 years before this. And then he was in Basketball 16 years after this.
Oh, wow. I mean, hey, good pictures. Well, is Basketball a good picture?
I love Basketball. I'm not going to call it a good film.
Got it.
But, I love Basketball.
All right. And then let's see. We haven't even talked about the bridge chase at the end. So, Brain's map is crap, correct?
Right, because he was. I'm the only one who can read it, but it's really. I think it's really just not very good.
Because doesn't Brain say everyone has to go to the left, then he blows himself up? That's how he dies.
He said something vague and generalized.
And then I like though that Maggie. She was like
a bloody death.
Yeah, and they filmed that in John Carpenter's garage because a lot of people in the audience were like, "What happened to her?" I don't know if you guys knew that.
I mean, she is surrounded by blood like no one else is.
Yeah, she gets destroyed.
It's funny in that action sequence when the Duke hits the other car and something flies by. Even when I knew what happened and I'm watching it, I can't tell that it's her. So it's like you just see him hit the car and then boom, there she is laying bloody on the ground.
Yeah, I think they kind of messed that up and they had to reshoot
I assume they tried something and it just didn't work.
I guess they assumed. I guess they hoped that everyone would assume she was dead, but test audiences were like, "What's that?" And you know what's crazy too, John? We'll go back to the bridge in a little bit. When people watched the movie in the beginning, a lot of people didn't know that Manhattan's like an island, and they had to add in those animations in the beginning to show the island of the island, like the.
Well, that serves it well though, because those animations were awesome. They helped get you into the kind of sci-fi futureness of it.
Oh, it's a great idea. They just didn't have them in the beginning because people were like, wait, what?
It's funny you say that, though, because whenever I watch this movie, it's not until I'm like halfway through it, but I start thinking, like, why don't they call it Escape from Manhattan? It's not Escape from New York.
Yeah.
Well, New York proper? New York.
New York proper?
The city of New York?
I guess Escape from Manhattan. Or Escape from New York.
But Manhattan is just a borough of New York.
Yeah, because you're not really escaping New York. You haven't escaped New York.
Right. It's just one borough of New York.
Well, it depends on what side of the river he climbs out on.
It's like if you live in Lakeland in Florida and you escape Lakeland, you're still surrounded in Florida.
If he swims to Jersey, he's escaped New York.
Oh, hey. Yeah.
Well, if he swims to Jersey, sure.
Wait, Jersey Shore?
You are.
Oh, okay. Jersey River
not fist pumping and steroids.
But no, the final chase, I think they stretched that budget really well on the bridge. They let him have it for one night. So they just threw a ton of crap like a couple days.
Didn't he buy it for $1?
$1, yep. And they loved him. So they just threw a bunch of crap on it. I just love, John, So you're the production designer on this movie, and you have a big team, but you're just taking dump trucks of stuff and you're crapping it on streets, and then you're just throwing it